Hello students, in my previous lecture I was discussing about the functioning of the heart. So proceeding with the same topic also, here in this video I will be discussing the same the functioning of the heart and this electrocardiogram. What are the different parts of this electrocardiogram? Now, so what happens, as you can see in this slide, at the top of this right atrium, this is right atrium, wait, so this is right atrium, this is left atrium, this is right ventricle, and this is left ventricle. As you can see, it is clearly mentioned in the previous slide: right atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. So this is the another picture of the heart. So this is the same another picture of the heart. Now, as you can see, at the top of this right atrium, there is a node, there is a point which is called sinoatrial node, or you can say this point is called pacemaker. So basically at this node, this pacemaker, they are the specialized cells which generate action potentials at regular rate, and this pacemaker is actually responsible for rhythmic heartbeat of the heart. So what happens at the top of this right atrium, at this point is called sinoatrial node. We have the pacemaker here, and these are the specialized cells which generate action potentials at regular rate. Now this action potentials, because of this action potentials at this specialized pacemaker cells, what happens? Ionic currents flow. During this depolarization process of the pacemaker, that is the generation of the action potential, what happens? Ionic currents flow, and because of the ionic current flow, what happens? Adjacent cells get excited and undergo the depolarization process. So in this way, from this pacemaker point, or you can say from the sinoatrial node point, the excitation waveform travels through both the atria. So from this sinoatrial node, the excitation wave travels through both the atria. Now what happens, since the excitation wave is traveling through the atria, the cells will get depolarized, and because of this depolarization, contraction of these muscles will occur. So the contraction wave follows this excitation wave. As the excitation wave travels down the atria, after certain seconds the muscles of the heart will get contracted. Now when this excitation wave which travels down this atria reaches this atrioventricular node, there it gets delayed, and it gets delayed. It travels down the bundle of His, where the bundle of His divided into two branches, and ultimately this bundle of His gets divided into the ventricle as Purkinje fibers. So this excitation wave which originated from this sinoatrial node travels down the atria and reaches the atrioventricular node, and then it travels down the bundle of His, and from the bundle of His to the Purkinje fibers. So once the excitation wave reaches the atrioventricular node and it travels down the bundle of His, there it gets delayed. And this delay procedure, this delay is intentionally introduced. Why? Because to maintain the synchronization between the atria and the ventricles. Between the atria and the ventricles, to maintain the synchronization, the excitation wave reaches the atrioventricular node and goes to the delay line, where it gets delayed. So once the excitation wave travels the delay line, or you can say the bundle of His, what happens? Complete contraction of the atria. During that moment, what happens? Complete contraction of the atria muscles take place, and all the blood from the atria goes into the ventricles. Now all the blood is now filled in the ventricle part. Now this excitation wave, once it has travelled through the delay line, now it will travel to the bundle of His. It will travel through this it will travel through this bundle of his it will travel through this Purkinje fibers. And once it is traveling through the Purkinje fibers that are spread throughout the ventricular muscles, what will happen? These ventricular muscles will undergo depolarization process, and after certain milliseconds the ventricular muscles will start contracting. And once the ventricular muscles will start contracting, what will happen? The blood will start flowing out of the ventricles into the blood vessels, and then from blood vessels either to the lungs or to the various parts of the body. That is, from right ventricle the blood will travel to the lungs through this blood vessels, and from left ventricle the blood will travel to the various parts of the body. And because of that we are getting this waveform. Now let us see what are the different parts of the waveform actually indicate. So what happens, let us again start the procedure. What happens? The first, initially what happens, the sinoatrial node undergoes the depolarization process. As I have already told you that the sinoatrial node or the pacemaker cells, they actually generate the action potentials. So when these cells undergo depolarization, then what happens? Electric current will flow, ionic current will flow, and because of the flow of ionic current the adjacent cells will get excited, and the adjacent cells will undergo depolarization process, and in this way the action potential will travel from the sinoatrial node through the atria to the atrioventricular node. So this occurs. So what is this process? This is the depolarization of the atria. This is the depolarization of the atria. So this depolarization of atria is shown by the P of this electrocardiogram. So the P of the electrocardiogram shows the depolarization of the atria. So this P wave shows the depolarization of the atria. Now once the atria muscles has depolarized, it will, after certain milliseconds, it will start contracting, and in the meantime what will happen? The action potential reaches the atrioventricular node and it travels down the delay line. So it intentionally travels down the delay line so that the whole contraction of the atria takes place and all the blood from the atria goes into the ventricle part. So that's why the action potential travels down the delay line, or you can say the bundle of His, from the atrioventricular node. So this PR interval, it actually represents the delay of atrioventricular node to allow filling of blood into the ventricle part. That is when what I am trying to say is that this PQ interval, what it is representing, it represents the time during which this excitation wave, or you can say the action potential, is delayed in the fibers, or it travels down the bundle of His near the atrioventricular node. Now once it has travelled down the atrioventricular node, now it will go into the Purkinje fibers, and the action potential will get generated in the ventricular muscles, will start get generated in the ventricular muscles. So this QRX complex, it represents the depolarization of the ventricular muscles and repolarization of the atria. This QRS complex, it represents repolarization of atria and depolarization of ventricles. Now once the ventricular muscles have depolarized, then after certain milliseconds what will happen? Contraction of ventricles will take place, and the blood will come out from ventricles to the blood vessels and to the various parts or to the lungs of the body. Now what does this T wave represent? Here this T wave, so the T wave, it is the wave for ventricular repolarization. Obviously ventricle muscles have gone depolarization, after a certain milliseconds it will undergo repolarization. So this T wave represents the repolarization of the ventricular muscles. Whereas there is a U wave also. After this T wave you will get a U wave, and this U wave is believed to be the result of after potentials in the ventricular muscles. And before the P wave, you can see there is a baseline, or you can say this is the isopotential line. This horizontal segment of this waveform which is preceding the P wave is designated as the baseline or isopotential line. So this is the electrocardiogram. So the electrocardiogram is in this waveform. What is this electrocardiogram? It is actually what is it is the graphical representation of the action potential. So you have already seen this is the graphical representation of action potential of the heart muscles. So P wave is representing depolarization of atria, QRS complex is representing repolarization of atria and depolarization of ventricles, T wave is representing repolarization of ventricles, U wave is representing the after potential U wave is representing the after potentials of the ventricles. So in this way the action potentials, that is the depolarization or repolarization process, or whatever you say, the action potentials, the graphical representation of the action potentials or the excitation wave of the heart muscles is this electrocardiogram. So once you record the electrocardiogram and you display it, and if you see any deformity in the wave, then you can diagnose that there is some problem with the functioning of the heart. So this graphical representation of bioelectric potential, it acts as the monitoring signal. This bioelectric potential acts as the monitoring signal of the functioning of the heart. So any deformity in this waveform will let you to diagnose that there is some malfunction in the heart. There is some problem with the functioning of the heart. So this was all about electrocardiogram. I am ending this class here. In my next lecture I will be discussing about electroencephalogram, that is another bioelectric potential. You can say that is the graphical representation of bioelectric potential which is generated by the neuronal activity of the brain. So I will discuss electroencephalogram in my next lecture. I am ending this class here. Thank you.